All right, before we get started with questions about the game, I wanted to make an announcement. So you guys know that we've been working on the Players Fund for a while now. We through the process, we've generated almost $1 million in funds, and so we wanted to start to delegate where those funds are going. So we're going to start this year with 7 inaugural grants. We've worked with the Seattle Foundation in identifying what organizations align with our core values as the Players Fund. So $125,000 will be awarded this year, and the individual grants range from $15,000 to $25,000. And I want to list off those organizations that we've awarded this year. So BEST, it's being empowered through supportive transitions. Not This Time, FEAST, which stands for Food Empowerment, Education, and Sustainability Team. Americans Friends Services Committee, Safe Futures Youth Center, Team Child, and the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. All of those organizations will be receiving grants from the Players Fund this year. And positive note, really grateful for the support that we got, obviously from the fans, but there was a number of players who also donated to the fund. We had support from Paul Allen and his philanthropies, the Carroll Family Fund, John and Tracy Snyder, our GM, the Seahawks staff, obviously, the Nadella Family Trust, Starbucks, and the Starbucks Foundation also supported us. So we'll continue to make grants in 2018, and we invite you all, the fans, players, staff, anybody who wants to support us, to continue to do so in the future. And with that being said, I'll answer any questions about this or about the game.
How did you guys decide where the money was going to go to?
So obviously we've kind of been working towards a number of specific topics that we've had communication or conversations about as a team, and Seattle Foundation being partnering with them and utilizing their help in trying to identify these organizations that align with our thought process. And so these organizations were at the top of the list. Some of them were at the top of the list, and so we went through and filtered out which ones we wanted to support.
Now that you've gotten to this point in the process where you're actually giving money, what are you most proud of that this has accomplished or brought together?
Most proud of? I think what I'm most proud of, and I want to say this very delicately because I don't want it to be, thought of as that this is the end. This is not the end. There's still more work to be done, and there will be more work done. But what I think I'm most proud of is the collaboration that we've had between a number of different entities, individuals, organizations, to come to support this fund. But not only this fund, the idea that we can have a huge impact on the communities that we live in, on our state, on the local level, and then obviously national as well, in ways that maybe nobody really fathomed before. But if we work together, which I think this fund has been a beautiful example of people working together to actually enact those changes, effectuate change. I think that's what I'm most proud of.
You talked about action item, something actionable when you announce this. Just how rewarding is it to get to this point where you're taking that action?
Say that again. Sorry, what was the question?
You mentioned in September when this was announced, you want kind of an action item.
Right.
And now that you're able to take this action and give the money, just how rewarding for you guys is this to be at this point?
It is rewarding. I think the hardest thing is that there's still a lot of work to be done, so we can't really rest, can't really sit back and enjoy this part of it. Obviously, these organizations have a lot of work that they've been doing, and we're supporting that. But then we're also trying to find ways that we can support in other ways. And so I think that's where the mindset is. I don't think, there's not really much enjoying this just yet because there's still a lot of work to do.
Now that you've figured out where the money is actually going, what impact do you hope that it has, and has that maybe changed from when you guys initially started the fund?
No, I think for most of us, we understand that we might not see the actual impact on a large scale in our lifetime. But, there's obviously something in us as humans compelled to do better in life, and whether that means with our families, with our teammates, or in our communities, we feel compelled to utilize what we've been given to make the world a better place. And so, I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that there would be a great, huge impact that I would be able to tangibly see and measure in my lifetime. But the truth of the matter is that might not happen. The things that a lot of civil rights leaders did, they didn't see the fruits of their labor. But, we are a product of that. And I'm not trying to compare myself or anybody else to what has been done in the past, but I just know I feel compelled that there's still a lot of work to be done. And so I hope that my kids and my grandchildren will be able to reap the benefits of that.
You guys have had a lot of individual charities and foundations that you've worked at your own. What about this fund is different than what you guys can do individually?
It's just on a larger scale, and again, I don't want to take anything away from what individuals have been doing, but the idea that this is a collaborative effort, that it takes people from both party lines, from multiple races, multiple cultures, multiple religions, multiple thought processes. People came together to support a common goal, which is to help our communities heal and to further along the process of us becoming a healthier and progressive society. And I think the reason why it's so important to me and why I think it's a benefit to, as an example, is that this is an example of people coming together despite their differences and working towards a common goal, which is finding solutions to better our society. And so I think that's the reason why it's a little bit more significant.
How important is it that you think people see that you guys are not just talking or whatever, but doing really tangible stuff like this as well into really specific places?
Yeah, again, I hope it's a model. I hope that people recognize that this is it takes effort to be empathetic. Whether you can see it right away or you don't see it or you don't understand it, somebody has a different perspective than you. And if you can take those perspectives and mutually agree to find a solution that best fits for the common good, then ultimately you're bettering society. And that's what I hope that this achieves, and I hope that this is an example of that, so that, honestly, we don't need the pat on the back, right? That's not what this is for, but we're hoping that not only does this help support these organizations that are doing the groundwork, but also give a lighthouse to people who are trying to figure out a way to support or to effectuate change in their communities.
Have you heard from any other NFL players on different teams about this?
About this specific fund?
Yeah, I mean, is there any, like you were talking about hoping it sets an example, do you think this could happen with other teams?
It is happening with other teams. So I know you guys are aware I'm part of the Players Coalition as well, and we've been discussing ways of other teams, other organizations doing very similar to what we're doing here. And that's all in process right now. So
two of these organizations are pretty directly tied to police and community, that interaction. It just, with what's been going on in the last few years, how important was that specific topic for you guys?
It was important because it felt like there was a great divide there, right, between the community and law enforcement, and that obviously doesn't need to be the case. It shouldn't be the case. And one of the main things that we set out to do was to heal, or to bridge that gap, to heal that wound. And so, yeah, a number of these organizations do just that. They're on the ground floor working with the community members and law enforcement to bridge that gap, to heal that wound. And so that's obviously from the onset has been something very important to us, and that's why it's reflected in the organizations we've supported.
On a less important subject, the NFL's catch rule is sort of in debate again. Do you have a thought on that and kind of what the rule is and your understanding of it?
Technology, I know. Okay, would you like to ask your question again, please?
I guess the first question, do you understand what a catch is in the NFL?
I do. Yeah. Oh, you mean as it pertains to the NFL rules, or? Oh.
I figured you know what a catch is.
No, I don't. I mean, Yes, it can be left up to interpretation. However, as a receiver, as somebody who's played football since I was 6 years old, you kind of see the same things over and over again, and recognize what's a catch, what's not a catch, right? I'd like to say that my opinion is validated by years and years of experience and exposure to it, but at the same time, when you have these rules that come out that maybe say something different, then you have to question it. So. Honestly, don't have an opinion of it. I hope that they can get it right, though.
Have you heard the phrase "survive the ground" before?
Yeah, I have, and I think that that is a huge part of it. You do have to get up with the ball, but there's a time frame within that maybe people who haven't played the game for as long as we have know the difference. If you catch the ball, you hit the ground, and then some time passes, and it's a fine line, right? There's some time pass, and then the ball comes out. That could be still a catch, but obviously it's a fine line, and it's up to interpretation, obviously.
Would you like to see them do anything differently?
Sorry, go ahead.
With the rule or just the sort of wording of the rule, is there anything you'd like to see different?
Honestly, haven't really engaged with it that much.
Did you see the play in Pittsburgh that was overturned, and was that the right call, you think?
Yeah, I did, and I don't want to comment on it.
As a receiver, do you think it's fair to be held to a different standard than any old ball carrier that takes the ball to the goal line and once it touches the plane, it's a touchdown?
No, because I think it makes the game interesting. It obviously passing is a different part of the game, so than just running to the end zone. So yeah, I do think there is a different. I don't want to say a different standard or a different set of rules, but there's a different interaction, different animation in that regard. So yeah, I think it has to be looked at differently.
How different is the situation this team's currently in for you as to what you're used to here in the 6-7 years you've been?
Well, we've never really had to face adversity in the season like this. We've had our struggles. We've endured some pretty devastating losses before, but I think just the time frame in which we're in, the situation in which we're in, the state of our roster, age-wise, so many different factors play into it. As humans, all those have implications. So, I think it's a different place for us, and we're looking at it as just some more adversity, but personally, I look forward to it because I know adversity only introduces you to who you really are, and if we can get through this, then we can really build upon it for the long run.
Because you've never been through it, do you not know how this is going to go, how this team's going to react to this because you've never been here?
No, but I have a good idea. We've been resilient before. Like I said, we've gone through trials and tribulations. We've had our issues, but we've always seemed to find a way. And I think that's no different. I think this is just a different test. Guys are in different phases in their lives. Before, a lot of us were single and didn't have outside distractions or other priorities, and now a lot of us are married, have kids, and so priorities change. And you look at the world differently. So these sets of adversities that we're going through right now, I think guys are just looking at them differently and finding out how to handle it. And I think we'll handle it well.
To that end, with priorities changing and older players with families, how difficult is it to separate family, Christmas, holidays, playing a game in Dallas on Christmas Eve versus being home with your family?
You'd have to ask my wife.
Maybe I would.
I know for the significant others and families, it's got to be a challenge, right? Obviously, players leaving and going to Dallas on Christmas Eve, playing on Christmas Eve, you don't get the traditional family time during the holidays. And so, yeah, it definitely plays a huge role, especially if you have a significant other who, didn't grow up with that interruption, who had that tradition or that consistency with the holidays. And so it does play a role, it does have a factor. But again, I've said this before, we're professionals. We figure out a way how to handle it and hope our wives still love us at the end of the day.
I know you guys have yet to step on the field, but in the meeting rooms, is there a more intense focus on the task at hand this weekend?
I would say that we're finding that balance. Pete has done a great job over the years of making sure that we don't get too tight and try too hard to do something that's outside the realm of what we're capable of doing. We just have to be ourselves. And when we do that with discipline and with accountability, then we're really hard to stop. It's just making sure that everybody's on the same page, including the young guys who've never been in this situation before, who haven't faced this adversity, and don't recognize what it is to be a Seahawks football player. So I would say we're finding that balance right now.
Coach said that KJ and Bobby will both be practicing today, and obviously other side of the ball, but how important is it to have as many veteran leaders on the field when you're going on the road against a team that's just as hungry to win this game?
Do you mean on the field during practice or during the game?
Game, yeah.
Well, obviously it's huge for the game. I would also mention in practice, it's a nice visual. It's a positive visual to have your leader, core guys, even if they're hurt, even if they're kind of dealing with some pain or some injuries, to be out there, because it shows the resiliency, it shows the leadership, and then obviously you get the reps, you get the chemistry with the guys around you. As for the game, it's huge to have guys who understand the communication, understand what what they see, and to recognize it, and then obviously to pass that along to other people. It has a huge impact on the efficiency in which we play, and that's obviously on both sides of the ball. So to have Bobby, to have KJ out there, the type of leaders that they are, and the fact that they communicate extremely well, is a huge benefit to the defense, and not only to the defense, to the offense, or the team as a whole.
Anything else?